Take a look at each other for just a minute. I know you can't see each other's faces, some of you, but take a look at each other and just look around the room for a minute. You are looking at some pretty incredible creations. I don't know if you knew this or not, but you are an absolute miracle. The fact that you exist is supernatural. It's miraculous. For probably 150, 170 years or so, it has been suggested that you're not that special. That there was an ooze pond, and that your lucky day happened when lightning struck that pond. Because out of this pond, the unlikely happened and life began to exist in this pond. How special does that make you feel? We are an incredible creation with an incredible design. You have a design, and you know what has to exist if there is a design? There has to be a designer. Someone that designed that incredible piece of machinery. Now, I'm going to show you a movie here, a short video in just a moment, and you're going to see the presenter do this, and you'll probably recognize the presenter as well, but I want you to do something really quick. I want you to raise your hand, your right hand. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Okay, you're going to learn right now what it took for you to be able to raise your right hand. This is Dr. Ben Carson explaining what happens for you to be able to raise your right hand.
How many people here remember your birthday? Okay, I think it's unanimous. What did your brain have to do for you to respond to that question? Well, first of all, the sound waves had to leave my lips, travel through the air, enter your external auditory mediators, travel down to your tympanic membrane, set up a vibratory force, which travel across the ossicles of the middle ear to the over and round window, setting a vibratory force in the inner lip, which mechanically distorted the microcilia, converting mechanical energy to electrical energy, which traveled across the cochlear nerve to the cochlear nucleus at the pontomedullary junction, from there to the superior olivary nucleus, sitting bilaterally at the brainstem to the laminiskis, to the inferior colliculus, and the medial geniculate nuclei, across the thalamic radiations to the posterior temporal lobes, beginning auditory process. From there to the frontal lobes, coming down the tract of Victor's jury, retrieving the memory from the medial hippocampal structure and the memory bodies back to the frontal lobes to start the motor response at the Bett cell level, coming down the corticospinal tract, across the internal capsule into the cerebral peduncle, descending down to the cervical medullary decussation, into the spinal cord gray matter, synapsing there, going out to the neuromuscular junction, stimulating the nerve and the muscle. So you can raise your hand. And that's the simplified version of what your brain had to do. See if you can get one of those rap singers to do that. But, you know, but if your brain can do that and you barely even had to think about it, what is your brain capable of if you actually put your mind to something?
All right, how many of you understood the simplified version of what you just did? I remember the first time I heard this and I thought, wow. First of all, wow that he could remember all that and explain how things happened. But the ability for you to hear the words that are coming out of my mouth, to understand them, and to react to them immediately. What he just described is the simplified version of what you are doing in your mind and your body to be able to do that. And that's just one tiny, amazing thing that your body can do. Truly, when God made you, he made a masterpiece. You are a walking miracle. A couple of little things about you that you may not have even known. There are 37 trillion cells in your body. 37 trillion cells in your body. Cells in the inner lens of your eye, muscle cells of the heart, and the neurons of the cerebral cortex are the only cells that will be with you for your entire life. The rest of you is recyclable. The rest of you goes in stages and is replaced. Those are the only pieces of your body that will be with you for life. There are 1 trillion nerves powering your memory. Now, you might think, well, my memory's terrible. I may only have like a billion. Thank you so much. I may only have like a half a trillion. My memory's terrible. We all have memory. And there are 1 trillion. A trillion's a big word, isn't it? That's a lot. A trillion. A trillion. There are 1 trillion nerves powering your memory. Studies have been shown that after viewing 2,500 images for only 3 seconds, participants could recall if they had seen the image with 92% accuracy. Your memory is an incredible thing. For instance, let's test it out. What's the best thing you've ever smelled? Something popped into your mind right now. Maybe cinnamon rolls. I'm going to get you hungry now. Indian food. Maybe a gardenia. Anybody smelled a gardenia flower before? My mom loves gardenias. We always had gardenia bushes. One of the best smells in the world. If you hit it just right, there's a bush right out here, here, and here that are lilac bushes. Maybe if you think about lilacs, you can even kind of smell it a little bit in your head, can't you? What's the scariest time in your life? Your memory is working right now as I even suggest things. I could suggest thinking about an elephant right now. What did you all just think about? An elephant. Your mind is incredible. Scientists tell us that we spend 10% of our day blinking. And you didn't even think about it. You've been blinking in here the whole time. Did you ever think about lubricating your eyes? Maybe if you have contacts, but otherwise, they just lubricate themselves, don't they? You don't have to, every time you blink, you don't have to moisten your eyes. God knew they'd need to be moist. And He created a system to where as you blink, it moistens your eyes so they don't dry out. That alone right there is incredible. Your eyes can distinguish between 2.3 and 7.5 million different colors. Your eyes contain about 107 million light-sensitive cells. You didn't know you were so complex, did you? We're talking trillions and millions inside of you. The eye has over 2 million moving parts. For you to follow along when I walk this way, that took a lot of work. A lot of things happened in your brain and in your eye just to follow me as I walk across the stage right now. Your eyes are doing amazing things right now, and you're not even thinking about it. Your eyes contain 7 million cones, which help you see color and detail, and 100 million cells called rods, which help you see better in the dark. You're an incredible creation. You are an absolute masterpiece. And this is only a fraction of what is amazing about you. And there are millions of other creatures out there with equally impressive makeups and designs. Absolutely miraculous. Chris Tomlin wrote the lyrics to this song. It says, indescribable, uncontainable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. All-powerful, untamable. Awestruck, we fall to our knees as we humbly proclaim, you are amazing, God. To see the fingerprint of God, all you have to do is look to the person next to you. And you see somebody made in the image of God. You are looking at an absolute miracle. The creation. Genesis chapter 1. Turn in your Bibles, first page in the Bible. Genesis chapter 1. And you would think that we could get into a book and make it farther than page 1 without having controversy. Where even on the first page, people are like, well, I'm not so sure about this. I'm not so sure I believe page 1. Usually people give it a couple pages and they're like, well, I'm not so sure about this. No, with the Bible, page 1, we have controversy already. And I think the reason we have controversy is because we see the supernatural, things we can't explain. People have issues with the idea of a supernatural creation because We have been trained to answer the question why or how. We need an explanation. We need to know how this works in order for us to believe it. But with the supernatural, there's no way. There's no way we can understand that. I'm still waiting to hear a good explanation of how God is omnipresent. I don't know how. He says he is. Because I trust him, I believe him. There's an element of trust that has to go into the things in the Bible that we can't readily explain from science. But because it doesn't agree with our current science doesn't mean it's wrong. You see, our God is much bigger than the science that we understand. We only have roughly 140 years of decent science study. The scientific revolution. And 140 years into it, we expect to know everything. It's impossible. We have to trust in the supernatural. And part of following God means we have to trust that he knows what he's talking about, that he can do the things he says he did. If we can have enough faith in God to believe that he can supernaturally turn his son into a single cell and implant him into the womb of a virgin, live a perfect life and die on a cross, substituting himself for us so that we can obtain grace and be saved in his kingdom, if we can believe all of that, surely we can believe in the supernatural means of creation in the book of Genesis, beginning as the world is described there. If we can believe that Jesus immediately and supernaturally raised Lazarus from the dead, we can believe that he immediately and supernaturally spoke, and it was so, like it says in the creation account. If we can believe that Jesus supernaturally and immediately healed the man at the pool of Bethesda, we can believe that he immediately and supernaturally created everything at the beginning. If we believe that Jesus will supernaturally and immediately, in the blink of an eye, raise the dead at the resurrection and transform us into new creations, certainly he has the power to immediately and supernaturally create Adam and all the animals and plants, as he says happened in the book of Genesis. One of my favorite theological authors is a man named Dr. Norman Gully. I used to sit in his Sabbath school class when I was in college. He was a retired professor at Southern Adventist University. And he has this to say. He says, when it comes to creation, as in salvation, we need to let God be God. If we call into question the supernatural ability of God at the beginning of Scripture, how can we consistently maintain his supernatural ability in the rest of Scripture? You can't. When it comes to creation, as in salvation, we need to let God be God and trust that what he says is 100% true. I've got some really cool pictures that are just about to come out. Nathan Green has painted 7 pictures of the 7 days of creation week that'll be coming out, and these will be going to a lot of our Seventh-day Adventist schools around the country and will be part of a creation curriculum that we will have in our Adventist schools. And so my dad works with Nathan Green, and so I got a hold of these pictures before they've been released, so we get to see them first. They're really cool. And they go day by day with the story of creation. Genesis chapter 1. Turn with me. If you're already there, let's read together. Verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Now, if you've got a good imagination, I want you to just picture what this looks like as we read through this. If you don't have a good imagination, try. See if you can picture in your mind's eye what this looked like if you were an observer just standing by and watching God do all of this. Verse 3. Then God said, "Let there be light." And 1,000 years later, there was light. Is that what it says? No, it's not what it says. It says, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, and that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So evening and morning were the first day. Now, I love, and we see this terminology throughout creation week in Genesis. Evening and morning were the first day. God wanted it to be as simple as possible for us to understand the timing of creation. He didn't say a million years later, this happened. He said evening and morning were the first day. How long did it take God to do this? One day. One day. Okay, verse 6, let's go to day number 2. Then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. Verse 8, and God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. The first couple days are fairly simple. Wait till you get up to like day 4 and 5 and 6. First 2 days, God is dividing things up. Verse 9, then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called the seas. And God saw that it was good. Do you notice that God is not making things and saying, well, I could have done better? He's not making things and saying, that was pretty terrible. I'm going to redo this one. I want to redo on this. As God makes things, he says, this is really good. God doesn't make bad things. And God saw that it was good. Verse 11, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass and herbs that yield the seed, and the fruit tree that yields the fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it was so. Let me stop there for just a second. This is really amazing already. What do you plant if you want a fruit tree? Plant a seed. And so right off the bat, God is planting things with a cycle in mind, a rebirth, new things in mind. He's thinking ahead into the future. Now let's stop and think about the things that God has made here on this day. I am thankful for mango trees. God made the mango trees on this day. If you like apple pie, you can be thankful that God made apple trees on this day. Maybe in heaven there'll be a pie tree. I don't know. Strawberries. Anybody have star fruit before? Star fruit's pretty good. I used to pick it when I lived in the islands. We had star fruit all over the place. Rambutans. Anybody had a rambutan before? There are so many cool fruits out there. One of the most neat things about traveling around the world, back in the good old days when you could do that, was that you could try all kinds of new fruits that we don't have here. Anybody had they call them several different things, a soursop? Anybody had a soursop before? Sometimes they call them guyabanos. It's a big green fruit like this that has spikes on it, and the inside has a very soft white meat with these big black seeds. It's one of the sweetest things I've ever put in my mouth. God made that. Fresh peaches, nectarines. I've had some of those from Costco lately. Amazing. God made that stuff on this day so that we could enjoy those things and have them for food. Verse 13, so the evening and the morning were the third day. Day number 4. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens, and divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. God gave it structure. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light to the earth. And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And what is he talking about here? The sun and the moon. And he made the stars also. Now this is kind of an afterthought, these stars. But to think about the magnitude of what God was creating on these days is mind-blowing. If you've ever seen the video by Louis Giglio called How Great Is Our God, he talks about the different stars and planets. And it's really a mind-blowing presentation because he goes through and he shows you just how big these stars are. And the Psalms say that by the breath of his mouth, the heavens were made. As Jesus spoke, these trillions of stars came into existence, and they are not small stars. One of the ones that he focuses on is a star called Canis Majoris. And I don't know how your Latin is, but that means big dog star. This thing is 4 quadrillion times the size of Earth. And he uses a golf ball as the size of Earth to help you wrap your head around how big this one star is. And he says if Earth were a golf ball, this star, Canis Majoris, you could fit 4 quadrillion golf balls inside of this, or Earths inside of this. That's the equivalent of, I think it was 4 golf balls in the whole state of Texas 4 feet deep. So if you filled Texas, which if you've driven across Texas, you know that's big. It'll take you from El Paso all the way across, it'll take you a good 16 hours to drive across Texas at 80 miles an hour, 85 if you've got a lead foot and trying to make it across there. 4 feet tall of golf balls in the state of Texas, and the Earth represents the size of 1 golf ball. That's how big this one star is, Canis Majoris. And as an afterthought here in Genesis chapter 1, verse 16, and he made the stars also. You ever sat outside at a dark night and looked up at the stars? You can't count them. There's too many of them. And then you see a shooting star. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? And God also made the stars. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light to the earth. Verse 18, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the dark. And God saw that it was good. So evening and morning were the 4th day. Now, this next picture is one of my favorites. And Nathan Green has done, this is his 2nd picture like this. But this shows God creating things on day number 5. And day number 5 is amazing. So there's Jesus. I love this. And I wish you could see the up-close detail of the fish. And you can see the bat ray up there in the front. And the creative power of God right here is just so alive. Beautiful picture. Then God said, let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures. Let the birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament and of the heavens. So God created sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. So the evening and the morning were the 5th day. Now this day is incredible. I don't know how God could create all of these creatures in one day, but he did. He spoke and it happened. And the wide variety of the things he made are absolutely mind-blowing. I think it was last year I showed you a video of an octopus. It's called a mimic octopus. I should have pulled this video up again today. It's incredible. This octopus can fake like it's other creatures under the sea to get out of trouble. It can fake like it's a flounder and go sideways like this. It can change colors. How does God do this? I can't wait to get to heaven and have God explain how some of this stuff happens. The giraffe always blew my mind. I've been to this. I grew up near the San Diego Zoo. We go to outings there with the school all the time. And I remember looking at these giraffes and just thinking, that is the longest neck in the world. How long does it take that thing to swallow? These things are incredible. Every one of these creatures is an absolute perfect design. There's some funny looking animals out there too. I imagine God looking at these and being like, okay, this one's white. Let's put some black stripes on that one. All right, this one's neck. Let's just stretch that neck a little bit. All right, off you go. Let's make this one really fast. I mean, the cheetah. Here's another one, the cheetah. The cheetah's amazing. Did you know that the cheetah's nostrils are a little bit bigger than the other big cats? It's because they need more oxygen at those high speeds to soak their heart with oxygen. Because they're going so much faster than the other cats, they need that extra oxygen, so their nostrils are a little bit bigger than the other cats, so they don't just keel over and die while they're running. God knew that detail needed to be there, and he's like, let's just spread those nostrils out a little bit more. Incredible, the design on those things. God saw that it was good, and he blessed the animals. God continues, verse 24, and God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth, each according to its kind. And it was so. God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, and cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and God saw that it was good. Now we get to a little bit of a change here. God made all kinds of animals, and the animals were good. Incredible. You've been to the zoo. You've seen some cool animals. But God wasn't done yet. In fact, he was saving the best for last. You see, God didn't make the wolf in his image. God didn't make the elephant in his image. God didn't make the monkey in his image. Didn't make the blue whale in his image. He wanted one of his creations to be extra special. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female. He created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on earth. He says, see, I've given you all the food you need. Look around you. There's herbs. I wonder if there were fruits then and vegetables then that Adam and Eve had that we don't have anymore. We've got some pretty good food here, but I wonder if we just don't have any of those things anymore. What was the food like in the Garden of Eden? The creation of Adam and Eve, it goes into more detail a little bit more in Genesis, but the creation of Adam and Eve is really amazing. God sculpts the first human, forms him with his hand, breathes the breath of life into Adam. His eyelids open for the first time. All those details I read about you, your eyes, your hearing that Ben Carson talked about, that all happened just like that when God spoke those words and breathed that life into Adam. He became a living soul. I imagine, I would like to have been there to see what it was like when Adam opened his eyes and he saw Jesus right there looking at him. Hi, Adam. Welcome. This is the Garden of Eden. This is your home. And the Bible tells us a little bit later on that Adam was looking around. He named all the creatures. That had to have been kind of fun. He got to come up with all the names. But he's looking around and he sees Mr. and Mrs. Zebra, Mr. and Mrs. Elephant, Mr. and Mrs. Skunk. I wonder if they sprayed perfume back then. Mr. and Mrs. Raccoon. And he's looking around, he's like, man. And so God says, I'm going to create something new. Finish off creation. Doesn't that make you feel special, ladies? You were the last creation. God saved the best for last. And there they are. And God ends his creation there on day 6. God saw everything, verse 31, he saw everything that he had made, and indeed, it was very, very good. Chapter 2, we finish off the last day of the creation week. Thus the heavens and the earth and all the hosts of them were finished. And on the 7th day, God ended his work which he had done. And he rested on the 7th day from all of his work which he had done. Now, he didn't just stop. He didn't just rest on the 7th day. He did more than that on the seventh day. We continue reading, verse 3, and he blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all of his work which God had created and made. He made this day special and unique from all the other 6 days. Those were incredible days. Big things happened on all 6 of those days. But on day 7, he didn't just stop with a 6-day week. He had a 7-day week. He says, this day, I want you to just rest. I'm finished with everything. We're just going to rest today. I like this picture because it shows Jesus and Adam and Eve just hanging out in the Garden of Eden, spending time together. There was no more creating. There was no more naming the animals. This was a special, sanctified time between Jesus and Adam and Eve. It was different. There are 2 words here. He uses the word blessed, just like he blessed the creatures that he'd made. But there's another word that he uses, it's sanctified or made holy. That 7th day. And from then on, we see in the Bible, the people that are following God are keeping that sanctified and holy day. Jesus did, Peter did, Paul did, all the disciples, David did, Samuel did. They all kept that day holy. And verse 4 says, this is the history of the heavens and the earth, when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the heavens and the earth. You did not come from a monkey, but you know the one who made the monkey. You didn't come from a lightning strike in a pond of ooze 4 billion years ago. You didn't evolve from a plant to an animal life to human life. If you did, there would be no purpose for your life. None at all. But because of who made you in his image, you can live your life today knowing that you are special. You are loved. You matter. And there is a purpose for your life. Maybe you're still searching for that purpose, but you know you have a purpose in this life. You have something to live for. Creation Week. God wanted us to have reminders of creation so we would never forget how much we are loved. We still have a 7-day week, don't we? This earth cycles on a 7-day schedule, just like it always has. And the fact that we are today on the 7th day getting together to rest and to worship is a statement of our faith in God as the Creator. It is us recognizing that Jesus created the heavens and the earth, and we are recognizing that as reality and truth. There are 2 things that God gave us as humans during Creation Week that I believe the devil has tried to mess with and attack since those days. The first one is marriage. The marriage between a man and a woman. That is how God had things in the Garden of Eden. Now we read stories about people wanting to get married to robots. You're like, what? What is it? What is this? Where marriage doesn't mean anything anymore. Where people want to have open marriages. You read about all these different kinds of things that people are trying out. The other thing that the devil has attacked is this last day, this day of rest that God made holy. Anytime God makes something holy, the devil always tries to mess with it. And just like with marriage, the devil tries to substitute other things. Well, have 4 or 5 wives. and it messes up what God had intended. Well, don't keep the seventh day like it says in creation. Keep a different day. And what it is substituting something unholy for something that God made holy. And the devil has been messing with these two things that are incorporated into the creation story since the very, very beginning. The competing idea is that God is non-existent in our beginnings. The competing idea wants to cut God out of every aspect of our origin. The word Genesis means origin. You know what the title of the main book that is the competing story? Origin of Species. It's so close, it's essentially the same word. But yet the probability of you coming from nothing with no designer is absolutely laughable. By how complex you are, it is absolutely crazy to think that you came out of nothing. Take a look at this Volkswagen. Some brave soul disassembled this whole Volkswagen piece by piece. I'm not sure if they ever got it back together. I don't think I could do that. But let's just say for a minute that all of these components represent our bodies, who we are. Once you get this thing up and together and going, you can drive down, well, this one can probably drive at about 55. This one's not going to be winning any races. It's a little Volkswagen. But this thing, when it's all assembled and put together, can go down the road, drive, honk, beep, beep, look around. It'll take you places, right? Now, let's say, we're presuming a lot here. We're presuming that all of these things could be somehow put together. That's what the theory of evolution says, that all of the miraculous pieces of who you are just happen to come together at the right time over a couple of billion years. So let's just say, let's think about the probability of this. What if we took every piece that's on this screen? And we're really giving them a lot here. We're already giving them the tire that's inside, or that's outside of the rim. The whole body of the car is put together. The doors are on there already. So we're helping them out a little bit on this. What are the chances, do you think, if we took all of these pieces, we put them in, let's say, the stadium where the Broncos play down here in Denver. Let's say you're a Giant and you can pick this stadium up like this. And let's say you just shake that stuff up for about 5 billion years. You shake it up. How many of you think that if you shake that stadium long enough with all those parts inside of there, that all those parts are going to fall into the right place, that somehow gasoline will miraculously appear and go right into the tank, that the seats will go in, that the whole engine, every single piece and spring will go into the right place, so that after 4 billion years, you can put that sucker in drive and drive right out of Broncos Stadium? How many of you think you could shake that stadium long enough to make all those pieces fall right into place to where you could drive that car? Our human logic knows better. We know better. The lubrication that goes into there, the oil, the oil's not even in the picture. How are you going to get that? There is no way, and this is what the theory of evolution, the alternate theory of where you came from, is based on. That we just got lucky enough to be here, and that there's really no purpose other than a lightning strike that accidentally happened. The possibility of this happening is absolutely laughable. And yet, a bulk of humanity believes this. Next week, we're going to be looking at a mixture of these two ideas, creation and evolution. There are a lot of Christians, Bible-believing Christians, that believe that somehow evolution and creation can shake hands and both work. There's a lot of big figures in Christianity and Bible believers that believe this. Some major theologians in Christianity that believe in the idea of what is called theistic evolution. In fact, just a couple of years ago, the Pope went on record saying that, yeah, evolution's a possibility. And I thought to myself, come again? How can the head of a church, a Christian church, a so-called Christian church, say that evolution is possible? Is Genesis not in their Bible? I don't know. Dr. Norman Gully's statement, I think, is a good one. When it comes to creation, as in salvation, let's let God be God. Let's trust that when he says it was evening and morning, that it really was evening and morning. You know the implications of the Genesis creation story for you? It means you matter. It means you're here on purpose. It means that you are designed in the image of God himself and that he loves you. That's one of the biggest differences in all of this, is that creation in the Bible tells us that we are loved, that we matter. And if we can believe in that supernatural peace, we can believe that the supernatural promises of resurrection, of a home in heaven, are 100% reliable. You are somebody. You are a walking miracle. Don't ever forget whose image you are made in. God loved you so much, he wanted you to look like him. He wanted you to be just like him. This creation story is an amazing story. It shows how powerful our God is. Sometimes we forget how incredible our God is at solving problems. And we think, well, I'm not even sure I'm going to pray about that because I can't see any solution out of this. Do you realize who you have the ability to talk to about your problems? You have the ear of a God who can speak, and a star that's 4 quadrillion times the size of this planet comes into existence. You are talking to a God who speaks, and out of nothing comes a majestic lion. That's the God who you're talking to about your problems. That is part of the beauty of the creation story. It reminds us how big our God is. And like the saying, I've said this a couple times, I love this saying. Don't tell God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big your God is. And creation is a reminder of just how big our God is. And invite our worship team to come up and to join me as we close in a song. And the song that we are going to close with is a song called I Surrender All. And you might be tempted to think that your problems